History tells us the ancient world was simple. Stone tools, limited knowledge. But buried beneath the earth are artifacts that demand precision, planning, and science. If these objects are real, then our understanding of the past is incomplete. The excavation began like countless others before it. Archaeologists expected fragments of pottery, crude tools, and traces of early survival, evidence of a simple, developing society. But as the soil was carefully removed, the discovery did not match those expectations. The object beneath the surface was not rough or irregular. It was shaped deliberately. Smooth planes, controlled angles, and proportions that suggested careful measurement. This was not something made quickly or without planning. From that moment, the excavation stopped being routine. Because what they uncovered did not resemble the work of a primitive culture. It looked intentional, calculated, and disturbingly advanced. Simple societies do not produce complex results. When researchers examined the artifact more closely, the true mystery emerged. The cuts were not only straight, they were consistent. Each edge mirrored another with near-perfect accuracy. This level of precision is difficult to achieve even with modern machinery. Yet these objects were created thousands of years ago without steel tools, motors, or industrial systems. There were no signs of trial and error, no uneven surfaces, no mistakes corrected over time. Everything suggested advanced planning before the first cut was ever made, and that raises an uncomfortable question. How much technical knowledge did ancient people truly possess? Precision is a language of technology. As investigations expanded beyond individual artifacts, entire structures came under scrutiny. Massive stone blocks, each weighing tons, fitted together with astonishing accuracy. There was no mortar holding them in place, no visible binding material. The gaps between stones were so small that even a thin blade could not pass through. Modern engineers understand how difficult this is. Even with laser measurements and precision tools, to achieve this on such a scale requires geometry, standardized measurement systems, and deep understanding of structural forces. This was not brute strength alone, this was applied science. Strength builds. Knowledge designs. Stone alone was enough to raise questions, but metal artifacts made those questions impossible to ignore. Laboratory analysis revealed complex alloys, metals combined in precise ratios requiring extreme heat and controlled conditions. According to conventional history, ancient furnaces could not reach such temperatures, and yet the evidence was physically present. These metals were not decorative. They were functional, durable, and intentionally engineered. To create them, ancient craftsmen would have needed advanced knowledge of chemistry, heat control, and material science. Knowledge that should not have existed at that point in human history. Someone understood materials, long before modern science named them. Among the most puzzling discoveries were fragments of ancient mechanisms. At first they appeared broken and incomplete, but when researchers studied them closely, a pattern emerged. These pieces were not random shapes. They were components, gears, teeth, and rotational elements designed to work together. Each gear followed precise ratios, suggesting mathematical planning and mechanical understanding. This was not art. It was function. To design moving parts requires knowledge of motion, resistance, and force. Concepts that should not have existed in the ancient world. Yet the evidence suggests someone understood them perfectly. Machines do not appear by accident. Beyond the mechanics, another layer of complexity revealed itself. Inscribed symbols repeated across different artifacts following consistent patterns, ratios, sequences, symmetry. These were not decorative motifs. They represented mathematical relationships still used in modern engineering and architecture. The carvings suggest a shared system of measurement and calculation, a structured language of numbers. Mathematics is not discovered accidentally. It must be learned, taught, and preserved. Which raises a troubling question: who taught this knowledge? And how far back does it go? Numbers remember what history forgets. Some inscriptions went beyond mathematics. They described the sky itself. patterns matched the movements of stars, planets, and cycles of the moon. These were not myths or stories. They were observations recorded with accuracy. Alignments at ancient sites corresponded with solstices, equinoxes, and eclipses, events that require long-term observation and precise record-keeping. Without telescopes or modern instruments, this knowledge should have been impossible. And yet, the sky confirmed what the artifacts suggested. Someone was watching, measuring, and understanding the cosmos. The heavens were mapped long before science named them. These discoveries might have been dismissed as isolated anomalies if they appeared in only one place. But similar patterns emerged across the world. Different cultures, different continents, yet the same advanced techniques, mathematical systems, and astronomical knowledge appeared again and again. This suggests something deeply unsettling, that ancient civilizations may not have been isolated at all. Knowledge may have traveled, or worse, it may have originated from a single, forgotten source. The past may have been more connected than we believe. When viewed together, the evidence forms a disturbing picture. Advanced engineering, complex mathematics, precise astronomy. These are not traits of a primitive society. They are the hallmarks of an advanced civilization. A civilization capable of building, measuring, and understanding the world at a level far beyond what history records. If such a society existed, its disappearance would not have been quiet. Something must have happened. Something powerful enough to erase it almost entirely. What remains are fragments and unanswered questions. Civilizations can fall and be forgotten. Not everyone accepted these implications. Within academic circles, the idea of a forgotten advanced civilization was met with resistance. Established historical timelines are built carefully layer by layer over decades of research. To suggest that those timelines might be incomplete is not a small claim. Many scholars argue that anomalies do not rewrite history. They demand extraordinary evidence. But others quietly admit that certain discoveries simply do not fit comfortably within the current model. Debate continues in lecture halls, research papers, and private discussions. Because if even one major assumption is wrong, the entire historical framework must be reconsidered. What if the resistance isn't about evidence, but about consequences? As researchers dug deeper, some noticed a troubling pattern. Early reports describing unusual findings were sometimes incomplete, missing pages, vague conclusions. In certain cases, artifacts mentioned in field notes were never publicly displayed. There are many possible explanations. Misclassification, funding limitations, simple human error. But when anomalies repeatedly disappear from mainstream discussion, questions begin to surface. Not every discovery makes headlines, and not every artifact becomes part of the official narrative. History is not only written, it is curated. Across continents separated by oceans, striking similarities appear: pyramid-like structures, megalithic stonework, astronomical alignments. Official explanations often attribute these parallels to coincidence or independent development. Yet the mathematical precision and architectural patterns are sometimes too similar to ignore. Could ancient civilizations have been connected through forgotten trade routes, shared knowledge systems? Or did they inherit fragments of understanding from something even older? What if these cultures were not the beginning, but the survivors? Geological evidence reveals that Earth has experienced catastrophic events. Massive floods, volcanic winters, abrupt climate shifts. Entire regions have been reshaped within decades. If a highly advanced civilization existed in deep antiquity, a global catastrophe could have erased most of its physical traces. Stone survives, metal corrodes, knowledge fades. Over centuries, survivors would rebuild, but with only fragments of what once was. Myths of lost golden ages appear in cultures around the world. Perhaps they are not just myths. Advanced societies can collapse, leaving only stories behind. Modern civilization often assumes it stands at the peak of progress, but history shows that societies rise and fall. What if humanity's story is not a straight line of progress, but a cycle? Rise, collapse, rebuild. The artifacts scattered across the ancient world may be echoes of a previous peak, a time when knowledge flourished before being nearly wiped away. If that is true, then the greatest mystery is not how advanced they were, but how completely they were forgotten. If it happened once, could it happen again? When all the evidence is placed side by side, the conclusion becomes difficult to ignore. Precision engineering, advanced metallurgy, mathematical systems, astronomical knowledge. These are not isolated anomalies. Together they suggest capability. And capability suggests civilization. The uncomfortable possibility is this: humanity may have reached a level of advancement long before recorded history begins. A chapter of progress that does not appear in textbooks, not because it never existed, but because it did not survive intact. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. If such a civilization once thrived, what would remain after thousands of years? Not skyscrapers, not digital records. Only what could endure. Stone foundations, fragments of metal, carved symbols. Time is relentless. Erosion reshapes landscapes. Oceans rise and fall. Forests reclaim cities. What we see today may be less than 1% of what once stood. And even that fraction forces us to reconsider the past. What if we are standing on the ruins of something far greater? There is another implication, one that feels closer to home. If advanced societies existed before and disappeared, then technological progress does not guarantee permanence. Our modern world feels stable, permanent, but history suggests otherwise. Climate shifts, natural disasters, human conflict. Civilization is fragile. The ancient artifacts may not only tell a story about the past, they may serve as a warning for the future. Progress without preservation can vanish. Despite decades of research, many of these artifacts remain unexplained. Some sit quietly in museum storage rooms. Others are still buried, waiting to be discovered. The questions remain unanswered. Who built them? How did they acquire such knowledge? And why did their civilization disappear? Every new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, but the full picture remains just out of reach. Perhaps the mystery endures because we are still missing something fundamental. Maybe the story is still unfolding. The ancient world may not have been as simple as we once believed. Beneath layers of soil and centuries of assumption, evidence whispers of forgotten knowledge. These artifacts challenge us not to reject history, but to question it. Because understanding the past is not about protecting old ideas. It is about seeking truth wherever it leads. If humanity has risen before and fallen before, then the story of civilization is far more complex than we imagined. And this may only be the beginning of what we are about to rediscover. Subscribe and continue exploring the mysteries history left behind.